Hi everyone, I'm Fabio and this is Skeptical Talks, a podcast where I talk with creative entrepreneurs and explore their successes and failures, fears and ambitions, and what they've learned in the journey of making their ideas come to life. Captico is a platform that connects video creators with translators of all kinds to give your videos new audiences independently of the language you speak or where you live. Something that remote companies don't suffer from. The ability to create new ideas not bound to a particular location has always fascinated me. I've always been curious to understand how they work from the inside. How does work happen? How relationships evolve? How to manage creativity, something that depends on deep focus, meaningful relationships, and deep connections. And that's why today I'm talking with Ana Ferreira, who knows a ton about this. Ana is the head of design at Doist, the full-fledged remote company behind the productivity tools Todoist and Twist, and a company that has one of my favorite blogs on the internet called Ambition and Balance. Check it out. We sat down in a very sunny afternoon in Porto, where Ana works from, to talk about managing creative teams remotely, mental health, successes and failures of building a remote company, and much, much more. Let's listen in. Ana, I'm very, very grateful that you take the time to do this. And I'd like to ask you a really interesting question that I think is interesting because I'm really interested about successes and failures and how does that lead to a product or lead to a change in a system or something like that. So one of the things that I'm really interested to understand is what's the most challenging thing on managing a remote team and managing a creative team on a remote company?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to be here. Mm-hmm. It's a pleasure. It's my first podcast, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Ana.
So anything I do wrong, please forgive me. So I think the biggest challenge is that it can also be considered a challenge, but it can also be a benefit of working remotely. Mm-hmm. It's challenging because you can't just get up and do a brainstorm session. Especially in Doist, we work with all over the world. So you can maybe you are alone in the time zone that you are working on. So you can't even schedule a call for your morning because all other designers are sleeping while you are working or something like that. So you always need to have something else to do, for instance. Mm-hmm. So if you are working on something, you always have a different task and you can switch to the other task if you really are blocked or something. I think that's one of the biggest things, feedback. Because you can't get it from one moment to the other. You can't get up and ask someone, hey, what do you think of this? You always need to have some feedback. That can also be an advantage because it allows you to be really direct on the kind of feedback that you are looking for when you share something. Like you share a prototype and you say, I'm looking feedback for this, this, and this, and this. And people will answer exactly to the things that you are looking for. They may say something else, but they will try to be really careful on the feedback that they are giving you. At the same time, it also allows the person that is giving feedback to actually take the time and reply when they are ready to, because maybe they were in the middle of something, they don't want to reply right now, so they will just look at your mock-up if you're in the same room and say, yeah, it's perfect. But if you have the time, maybe you will reply only in the end of your day and you actually take half an hour, 1 hour to really come and the thing that you are looking for. So it takes some time getting used to it, managing or designing. And I also got that feedback from almost all newcomers to the team, especially the ones that are not so used to remote work. But you get used to it.
How did you guys got into discovering that you could do brainstorms online, and was that there was any trial and error? I'm assuming.
Yeah, of course. So I will take a step back and tell you more or less how the company started. Maybe that makes sense. So Doist started actually with the product Todoist, and it was a personal project from the founder, Amir. He was still in university and he also had some freelance work that he needed to take care of. And he tried to look online for some platform that could help him, but he wasn't able to find anything that fit all his needs. Mm-hmm. So he decided to create one and he created Todoist. And because he was writing it on the web, he made it available for everyone, so everyone could use it. And it got traction because Amir also was known in the GitHub community and things like that. And people started using it. Then he went to Taiwan to work on other things. Then he went to Chile to work. And he actually went to Chile with a product related to Todoist, which was called Doist, which was to work together. But this was part of the Startup Chile program. The government was giving money to companies to help them develop a product and spend the money in their own country. Mm-hmm. And Amir was there with that Todoist product related, but he actually ended up working on Todoist and not on the other product. And this was when the mobile apps were starting to grow, and he actually realized the importance of mobile apps in that moment. So Todoist was on web in that time, but that's when it started to becoming mobile as well.
Was this like around 2008 also?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. 2009, I think. But yeah. So that's when Todoist started to become a company, because Amir couldn't do everything by himself, so he started to hiring freelance workers on Elance or something like that. And those eventually actually became the first employees of Doist some years later. So, yeah, this is how the company worked. And it didn't start with the intention of becoming a remote company. Mm-hmm. It just couldn't find the good enough people in Chile, so we started looking outside Chile. And he started contacting us freelancers, and then they got hired. So the company just grew from there. But yeah, so the idea was never to create a remote company.
Okay, that's interesting because you guys seem to be like kind of evangelists of the remote work.
And we are, and now we certainly don't want to get back. But initially it wasn't like, oh, let's do a remote company. No, we just... it started that way. It started organically that way, and now we really see the advantages on all that. You can be with your friends, you can be with your family, and you still work, and you work on things that you actually like, and you don't need to move across the world to work on projects you believe in. So.
And when Amir contacted you, like to be, I'll say, designer or manager.
Designer. Yeah. I was actually the first designer to be hired for Doist. Before that, he only had some contractors, but he was looking for someone that could be available full-time or part-time, because I started working part-time. And it was actually friends of friends, and I knew that they needed a designer. Mm-hmm. So I got interviewed. He already knew my work, because when he was in Startup Chile, some other co-workers of mine were there as well. So it was a pretty simple thing, and yeah, I got hired.
And how was like because now you were a manager and you are a head of design and product at Doist, right?
Yeah.
So how was your progress into coming from a design role, which is more like focused on the day-to-day tasks, I would say, and then moving to a broader spectrum?
So, I was the first designer. I joined more or less at the same time as another designer who's no longer working with us. And we were both designers, both at the same level. And eventually he left. We hired more designers, and when we were 4 or something, I was already doing more or less the management stuff. I would schedule meetings, doing the assigning or trying to organize who would work on what and things like that. But it wasn't something I planned to do or anything. I was there for longer. So I ended up doing most of that work without even thinking about it. But and then I got promoted, I don't know how many years ago or anything, maybe 4, 3, I don't know. And I became the head. So I still, until very recently, still did all kinds of works, and I still got my hands dirty in everything. Lately, I've been realizing that also blocks some other things, because I have more meetings than some other persons, for example. So I need to, I could block someone else's work. So I'm no longer working on things that have super tight deadlines.
Okay.
I still work on design, but nothing with short deadlines or super important that will block someone else's work. So yeah, that's
really
more or
interesting.
less it.
I always thought that you were, for instance, when I read your articles and read Todoist, you become from a management side of things, but it seems like you come from the design side of things.
Yeah.
And that's really, really interesting.
Everyone in Doist started more or less like that. So until end of last year, Amir was still coding. He's the founder. So Gonzalo is the CTO, and he was previously head of Android. And even though now he's the CTO, he still codes a little bit of everything. He's helping doing some twist things, and he's helping doing lots of things. So we are all doers. So we still all do things and not just manage. And we also really like that chance of still being able to do things.
And well, you come from a design background, and I'm really interested to dig into that because I do a little bit of design as well. What are like your biggest challenges in coming from a design and changing it to a management perspective? It's like, was there anything that you had to change in terms of like your mindset or?
Especially your mindset. You realize that the contribution you give to the team is not exactly what you design, but everything that the team itself does. And maybe your contribution for a new feature is just feedback or is just unblocking stuff, and you don't actually design anything. And this is really strange from a design perspective,
definitely.
Because
for me, I'm more interested into doing it rather than...
Exactly.
Sometimes like I say progress is just what I do rather than the feedback I give. And it doesn't seem like that for you, right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And how
I think that this is really the major shift that we need to go through from going from a doer, individual contributor position into
Tell me more about that. That's
more leading.
So you're saying that
it's shifting the mindset behind everything that you are doing.
So you're saying that it's not only the tasks that you do, like the to-do list that you have,
exactly,
but also giving feedback and being a good teammate. Is that part of?
You need to be able to give more feedback than if you're outside, probably, and you need to shift actually the mindset at which you look at things. You're not just working for yourself, but for your entire company or for your entire team.
And how do you think that? I'll say I'll just do this kind of comparison all the time, doing physical management and remote management. So just so that we have like a separate. I don't know if they are separate or not. You can tell me more about that. So I was interested to understand if the physical management, the one that you are in the office and managing all these people, is different from remote, and how do they differ?
I never manage in local settings, so I have no idea how it works. My idea from everything is that people tend to be much more controlling in a certain way. They are much more on top of everything, and on a remote setting you actually need to trust that the person will deliver and give them freedom to be able to do those kind of things without someone looking over your shoulder, because at Todoist, employees are expected to work 40 hours a week, but we don't use any kind of software to control if they are working or not. We don't know because we are not seeing them. Many of them are working alone from their houses. So we trust that people actually do this, and we evaluate the performance and the outcome of the things that they are doing and not so much the hours that they are working on. So you just trust.
That's really cool. And the reason I asked this question was just trying to understand if there's a way of that you guys manage like relationships. How do you guys manage relationships in a remote company? Because on a physical company, you have like these tribal kind of things that happen and nobody knows how they happen. Like there's a flock of friends, or there's this friend that doesn't like this friend. How do you guys manage this online?
Well, for one thing, maybe you have less drama because you are remote, so that can be considered an advantage. But one of the things that we do, and this is because we learn and we got feedback from new members in the team across the entire company, is that when you join Doist, you get a paid trip. You get a mentor first. You get a mentor for the first 3 months that you're in the company. And that mentor is responsible to be always there for you, to help you with whatever you need, checking in. Not that everyone else wants to do it, but it's always comfortable for the person that joins the team to have someone they can trust implicitly because they are there to help them. And the newcomer has a paid trip to visit mentor during the first months. Ideally the first week. Usually this doesn't happen, but during the first months of the work for 1-2 weeks, and they just work from the same place. It can be a co-working space, it can be an office, then can be coffee shops, whatever. And the idea is that for the newcomer to develop the personal relationship with someone, because we know that it can be lonely to work remotely, especially in the first days. You know no one, you just see names and avatars in Twist, and you don't know exactly who they are. So this is how we try to start the relationships between people. Then we also have an yearly retreat with everyone from the company. We went to Menorca, Iceland, Greece, Chile, and Azores in the last month. So we fly everyone there. We spend a week working together, high-level stuff. We walk around the place we are visiting.
Is that how you keep like the relationships healthy?
Yeah, exactly. And I've been working in Doist for 7 years now, maybe. The first retreat that we had, it was 3 years ago, or 4. I don't remember, but yeah.
How many people were like in the first one comparing to this one?
We were about 20. And this year we were 60 something.
Okay.
So it increased a lot. But the main difference is that after the first retreat, we felt much more comfortable reaching out to everyone in the company. And we were already working with them for a couple of years mostly, but we never saw them. Some of them we didn't even sign a video chat because maybe we don't work that closely. So we just, most of our communication is written. So most of the people we just talk via chat, via messages, via threads on Twist. So yeah.
That's really cool. And I'm actually really interested in that's what, like the numbers keep growing in at Doist, like probably have more clients or there's more people interested in your philosophy, which I would like to talk a little bit more further. And I'm interested to understand if what are your metrics for hiring people? Is there any different metrics that you use to hire for Doist? For example, one of the metrics I'm really interested is mental strengthness, and because like I think remote work requires a lot of mental strength, so that's why I'm curious about that. Like if you have different metrics.
We have 5 skills that we look for in everyone that works in Doist. And yes, they are there also because we are remote. The mental health or strength is not one of them. We look for independence. So people need to, because they don't have anyone with you, people need to be independent and work on their own. They really need to know, take ownership of stuff and move it forward if needed. Mastery, which I think we all look when we are looking, this is not remote or non-remote. Communication, because communication is a huge deal for us. We work remotely, so communication becomes an even bigger deal. balance, because we don't want people to be always working and do anything else outside work. We believe, and this is the philosophy of the company, that you actually need a work-life balance, if this makes sense, because your life is as important as your work. So you should do other things and do things that actually can impact the company, the clients, and things like that. So, yeah, basically, these are the 5 things we look for. Our hiring process itself, I think it's a little bit different from other companies. So we post a job ad. We usually have at least 3 interviews with 3 different people in the company, people that they will work with, and that evaluate different skills on the person, even though we are all looking more or less for the same thing. So, for example, for the last designer that we hired, I was the first interviewer. After the first interview, we would decide if they were good enough to pass to the test project. We always do a test project because we also want to see how people work outside their own environment or work alone. This is super important for us. And based on the test project, you would move forward to the next interview, which was, in this case, with another designer, Alex, a product designer, and you would review the project with him. So I would evaluate the culture fit and everything, and also a little bit of the design skills. And if we matched everything, like reviewing previous works that he has done or something, or she has done. And Alex would then discuss the project itself, that it was done. So from there we could get explanations from why something was that way, what was missing, because we usually give a small time frame to do this project. So maybe 16 hours. It's not that long. Designers always need to do some compromises, so it's always interesting also to know where they compromise and where and why. And after the last interview, if Alex thinks it's okay to move forward, you will have another interview with the CTO, the CEO, or the COO, that it will do a final evaluation. And only if all 3 agree in hiring, that the person will be hired.
Okay.
So if someone has doubts, the person will not be hired. And even after the hiring process, we always have a 3 months trial period. And this is for both the employer and the employee, because it's a great safe net for everyone, because remote work especially is much different. Sometimes people don't adapt to remote work. We don't look exactly for someone that has experience in remote work. So, of course, if the person has side projects, we already know that she can become motivated working alone and things like that. But it's always like, you never are sure if the person will actually be working the best way she can with us. Some people doesn't adapt to remote work.
Is that also a challenge? Like, remote can be like something good, but it can also have its challenges?
It can be really lonely, because you are alone. Maybe you spend your whole day working from home. You don't even leave your apartment. So it can be super challenging, and you don't get feedback you're looking for in the exact moment that you want to. That can also be a challenge. So not everything. When people think about remote work, most of the times they think about mojitos at the beach.
Yes.
And this is not remote work. I think we only had one coworker that actually spent lots of time traveling. He's now in his house, so because he was missing his family and all the everything else, because everyone else in the company just lives in their city, either the one that they were born in or the one that they choose to live, and they have a life there, and they just work normally, but in a remote company. They don't need to go from one place to the other. They just work.
I'm actually really interested, because you mentioned that people think that remote is just mojitos and beach. And why do you think that this happens? Because, I don't know, I'm just curious to understand why
I think it's also a bit because of social media and things like that. So usually social media you just show the good part of stuff. So you go to Instagram and you post your photograph of you remotely working in the beach in Bali or something like that. But this is just, maybe you do that for 1 month or 1 week, but then you return. For instance, 2 years ago, me and 2 friends of mine here from the office, we were traveling in Japan and Taiwan. And we were still working, and we could post amazing pictures if you want to, like the laptop in an amazing setting. But that was like 1 month in the 6 months, in the 6 years I work here. So you can do it, but and you show it if you want, but that's not the reality for most remote workers.
Yeah. So it's usually like probably a little bit of the opposite. So you are sometimes alone.
Sometimes you are alone.
Sometimes you don't get feedback.
Yes.
It's just like, I need some feedback. And then it doesn't
then I
come.
will work on something else because this one is blocked because I can't talk with someone right now. For example, the design team in Doist, we have 2 colleagues in Taiwan. That's actually one of the reasons me and my friends, we went to Taiwan. We went to visit them. So 1 illustrator and 1 marketing designer is there. Then we have 2 in the UK. 1 is original from Greece and he moved to the UK recently. They are not in London, they are in smaller cities. We have Margarida, which is another illustrator in Aveiro.
Okay.
So in Portugal. And we have Alex, which is in Nuremberg, and we have Pan, which is from Luxembourg, but is currently traveling. So he was already in Portugal, now he's in the UK, and then he will go to Bali actually, but just for vacations.
So the time differences
the time differences for people in Europe are pretty small, 1 hour, 2 hours, but to Taiwan is like 8 hours.
Yeah.
So we just get used to that, and sometimes we need something from there, but we need to wait. And for instance, if you're working on marketing pages and you need the feedback from the marketing head, you will need to wait to Seattle time because she's there. So you just really get used to wait, and that's why you have lots of.
That's really cool.
You always have more than 1 project at hand because you post something, you ask for feedback, and then you go on working on other things. Yeah. While you're waiting for feedback.
That just reminds me of the great article you wrote for Invision about managing remote teams. And this, like the structure that you just described, it seems like you guys thought about structure, and the way that you wrote that article, actually, there's a pyramid, and you structure that so well that it's so easy to talk about things now. Like if I want to talk to you about and mention just 1 layer of that pyramid, which is what I'm going to do, it's super easy. For example, the layer I'm really interested in is mindful meetings, because it's at the top. I'm also thinking about the foundation layer, but let's talk about that later. And when you say like you have to wait, you have to learn and cope with waiting. Yeah. Does that help you with the mindful meetings? And like, I don't know, tell me more about that because that's interesting.
So we usually try to have as less meetings as possible in Doist, also because of time zone differences and everything, but not just because of that. We believe that the most of the communication can actually and to work in a remote setting should be asynchronously. That's the base layer of the pyramid you mentioned before. So this is where most of our communication happens. It's written, it's using Twist, which is a platform that we created exactly because we are remote and we couldn't find any product that would fit our needs. So we decided to create Twist. And so our meetings are really the last resource of communication. And usually we have as little recurring meetings as possible. Each team usually has a weekly meeting because it's also nice to see other faces, especially if you are remote. So this meeting doesn't take long. It's in morning for Europe, end of the day in Taiwan. We usually have it on Monday mornings, Europe, end of the day in Taiwan. So, in this meeting, we discussed the things that we did previously in the week before, what we will do that week, if we have anything we need help with, if work is delayed and we should already postpone things and stuff like that. So we discussed today, and we mostly use it as a catch-up to see other person.
And does that has any impact on your output? Because you seem to be like so you have like a lot of features coming out all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious if there's any impact on being mindful about your meetings and being like just in different time zones. Does it help with that?
If we were all having meetings, our days wouldn't be so productive. In Doist, we believe in deep work, so each one of us should have a couple of hours a day where they can just focus and not communicate with others. Some days it's easier to do that than others. For example, today it wasn't a good day for me. I was just replying to stuff all day. But in order to be able to do this, you can't be disturbed by every ping or everything. That's one of the reasons why we tried Slack and we dropped Slack, was because you never actually got deep work time or offline time. You would always, even when it was your weekend already, or it was still your weekend and people were already working in other time zones, or when it was your night, you were still always checking Slack because you were afraid of missing something or missing the correct moment to say something. Because if something was discussed while you were sleeping, probably you wouldn't, after I don't know how many comments, you wouldn't go back and revive a conversation before. And this is why we stopped using Slack and started using
That's really
Twist.
cool, because it just reminds me of the article we were just talking in the beginning, which was like, is Slack ruining your life? There's just this article on Vox that it's making the rounds around the
For
internet.
us, it was. I can see it working better in a non-remote setting or in remote settings where you force everyone to work in your time zone or things like that. But for us, it was really, really difficult because we couldn't disconnect. We couldn't go back on discussions that we were having previously.
Exactly. Even when I compare it with my experience on working in an office, I would say that this instant messaging platform, like Slack for me is instant messaging.
Yes.
That's it. I can do that the same in WhatsApp or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like you feel like you are in an internal meeting and it never ends, and people are constantly changing you constantly. And how do you guys like solve this problem in Doist or Twist or?
So on Twist, which is the platform that we created, we don't have online indicators for start. So you don't know if someone is online or not.
Simple and very cool idea.
And for us, asynchronous communication is the default. We have threads, which is a way that are incorporated inside channels, which is the way we discuss things. And they are all organized by topic. So if we are creating a new landing page, we will create a thread for the illustrations, another for the marketing, and the conversation will always respect that topic. Of course, sometimes it will derail a little bit, but we will move that to another thread. Like when we start to derail, it's like, hey, it's time to move this conversation somewhere else and go back to the original thoughts. And we also have direct messages, but we don't know if people are online, and even if they may not reply to you, and we are okay with that. One of the things that we actually say when someone is about to start a new conversation with someone, a direct message, we say, hey, this person may be actually working, so maybe she won't reply just right away. Just she will reply when she has time. So it's this really kind of smaller things that
like
we try
tiny little thing.
Exactly.
That actually just made me think that sometimes just for me having a green dot makes people sometimes bully me, saying like, "You are online. Why are you not doing this?
Why are you not responding to
exactly.
me?
Why are you not replying to this? And are you replying to another channel?" And I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And you just like you mentioned the online dot. It just makes a big difference. Like now that I'm thinking back, it's really just. Tell me more about.
If you don't know, you can't demand their attention.
Exactly. Tell me more like about the asynchronous communication, because that's the base of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And when you read more about Doist, that's like a key word. It's mentioned very, very, very many times.
Yeah. So, of course, we also learn from past mistakes.
Okay.
So
I'm curious.
Sometimes you would have meetings and you wouldn't post the conclusions to everyone. So people would lose the information or they wouldn't know why we were doing something. So we realized that even when we have a meeting, we actually need to post the conclusions from that meeting to everyone else.
Oh.
But we try to reduce the meetings to the minimum, because if you need to have a conversation with someone that is in Australia, someone that is in Europe, and someone that is in the west coast of the United States, it becomes impossible to find a meeting time that would actually work for everyone without being the middle of the day or the night. So you become more mindful about when to schedule meetings and when to find other ways of discussing everything that you need to discuss. And maybe it will take longer, but maybe it will also allow people to actually be thoughtful about the answer that they are giving and not just reply something because they are inside a meeting and then actually consider the problem and change their minds. So most of the conversations that we have, it's written. We write everything. Everyone is welcome to comment. And
I know that you guys have like people from around the world, right?
Yeah.
How many countries, just to make your life different?
We have 30 nationalities right now, living in 51 cities, 51 different cities. That doesn't mean that they live in the place they were born, but yeah.
And does language play any role on my making ideas go through? Like, sometimes I struggle, for example, because my native language is Portuguese.
Yeah, of course.
And when I need to like think about how can I explain this better?
Yeah, so English is our default communication language, and most of us is not a native speaker, especially marketing as more native speakers, because probably they do the marketing, and even though we also support other languages, it starts in English. But for all the other positions, from design to development, we are not native speakers. So, of course, we do mistakes. And I probably already did many while talking to you. But we learn also how to go through the mistakes. And the company also has an education perk, which they give us money every month or every year if we need it annually. That we can use for any kind of personal improvement. And maybe if our English isn't the best one, we can always try to improve it. In the beginning, we were less, we required less from people as an English speaker. Now, because the communication becomes even more and more because the company is growing, we are starting to be more, we require more, but still we always
really cool.
Require that people would still be able to talk and make their points
understood.
across in English.
I'm interested.
For example, I'm also Portuguese, so even if I'm interviewing a Portuguese person to join the company, the interview will be in English, because unless it is a support position where we need someone that actually speaks Portuguese, which already happened, we will be doing the interviews in English.
And how do you think, like, I'm interested to like change gears and talk a little bit more about remote and the perception of remote currently in our living society. And I see that there's a growth into like remote jobs, into the remote awareness of companies, into tap into global talent. How do you think that this is evolving? And like, I don't know. I'm really interested to understand, like, how is the future? Are we going more remote, or do you think we're going to go less remote?
We never know what will actually happen in the future. So at Doist, we believe the future is remote, but we already have experience of other companies that were actually remote or remote super friendly that went back into the location-based company. We still believe that remote is the future because it allows you actually to hire people from everywhere in the world without forcing people to move to your country. So we still believe actually that remote is the future. We don't know if this will be true, but we think it will be much bigger. Because the internet now allows us things that it didn't a couple of years ago, and each day it allows us to do more things, and it gives us more tools that we can use to brainstorm, to meet, to create friends in other locations of the world, not just work. So
that's really cool because I'm interested because you guys are here in this amazing office. It's a very small office. So Anna is in Porto right now. It's very sunny outside. It's amazing. But you have like 5 more people working with you that work in Doist, right?
Yeah.
Does this go against the values of the company, or how does this evolve? Because I'm interested.
At Doist, we have a co-working space budget. So the company will actually we incentivize people to go and work in a co-working space, especially because of the things that we talked before about being lonely as a remote worker. If you go to a co-working space, you will meet people there. It won't be your colleagues from work, but you still see faces and you will make friends. So in Porto, there are a couple of us, maybe 6 or something. So I don't know because we don't always come to the office. But instead of using the co-working perk, we decided to rent an office altogether and we work from the same place. That doesn't mean that we don't do what others that are alone do. So we have a big meeting room, but we usually don't use it inside the company. To meetings inside the company. If we have a meeting, even if it has 6 people in Porto, each of us will be in their own laptop, in their own meeting room, talking with other people, unless we are the only ones, and this is rarely the case. We will be all in front of their computers, talking to a camera, seeing a screen, because that's something we learned. We did that in the past, and people that were outside, they would feel less heard, and we would turn into each other and we would discuss things, and the other person would feel a bit left out. So we learned from this, and because we thought we are all here, we don't need all laptops, one is enough. But no, that makes a huge difference, because people participate more if we are all in the same environment.
That's so cool. I'm actually thinking, how can I improve my way of working just by this kind of, like, this tip that you just gave? Because, that's true, that happens a lot. It seems like people just talk and then you are not part of that conversation. Yeah,
and you are there in a computer screen, but it's not the same thing as interacting at the same level as the others that are physically present. So that's cool. Something we learn. So sometimes all our meeting rooms are full with people just talking to each other, to the person that is next door.
And like I see, like you guys are in Porto, and you reach like globally for global talent. I'm interested to understand, like, if people are changing in the mindset, like, of looking for a job, for example. Is it easy to find really good designers, for example, or really good developers remotely, as is finding locally, for example, or is it probably easy to find remotely then?
We never had a really big problem finding designers or illustrators. Maybe we spent like 6 months before trying to hire, because it also had some vacations in the middle that delayed the process and things like that. But sometimes it's hard to hire because you're looking everywhere, but sometimes people don't reach out to you. Maybe they don't find you. Maybe they don't even know that they can work remotely because that still happens. We actually have one job opening for Android that it's open for 2 years now.
Oh my God.
Because no one still matched our expectations on the person that we are looking. But sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easier. There is no...
Yeah. So one of the things I'm curious as well is like, nowadays and I think in the future it's going to be even worse. It seems like what is scarce to find is silence. So it's like there's noise everywhere. And being able to focus. And you mentioned deep work.
Yeah.
I'm curious to understand, like, how do you guys proactively prompt like this deep work and just being like quiet, or I don't know. I'm really curious.
One of the things is the async communication. So we don't force. Most of the communication is done this way. So we actually try that no one feels forced to reply at a certain time. Of course, we expect people to reply like 24 hours, 48 hours. And sometimes this is difficult, but we still expect for people to reply, but not to be disturbed by the others. So I think the asynchronous is a big part of the mindful or the deep work. Then we leave out to people to organize their work days as they prefer. I know that some employees don't reply to Twist in the mornings because that's the part of the day that they work best. So they leave that part to deep work and they just start replying to threads and they just have meetings in the afternoons. Others try to organize all their meetings in the same days, for instance. So that gives them more time for the other things in the other days.
Yeah, I'm curious to understand like a little bit more about the process itself, like the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
And there's one page that I'm in love since I went to Doist for the first time, which is the when you compare Twist with Slack. I think that page is so incredibly done. And I'm interested to understand how is the day-to-day work to create something like that. Like there's copywriting. The copywriting is beautiful. Illustrations, just like you get like very overwhelmed with like the way that your brand evolved into like this very subtle and very relaxed illustrations. How something like that happens in a remote work that works at your scale?
Yeah. So for a landing page, we would start with an idea of the copy or the message that we are trying to transmit. And we would have developed designers and illustrators working together on that message. Copy or marketing, they are closely connected.
Where does the requirements come from? Is that
the requirements, it depends. So for a landing page, it would come for marketing or because we are launching a new product or a new feature in the product so that we want to promote, or something so that can also come from product. But probably a landing page would come from the marketing team. We need to improve this message because it's outdated or something. But so the marketing would start with the message, design and illustration would come in and work on that based on that message. Marketing copy would improve the message because after the illustration, the design is done, sometimes they want to change a little bit some things because maybe it makes more sense. Then it would go to implementation and it would be launched.
And this like people usually do asynchronous communication using your platform?
Yes. So Twist is the default way of communication
for everyone
for
here.
everything.
Oh, that's so cool.
So we use Google Docs for copy revision, for example, because Google Docs allows us to comment in place and leave suggestions. We create all the design specs in paper from Dropbox, which allows in-place comments, which is like our brainstorming part in the remote setting. And we use Marvel for prototypes. And this is all used always. So we use Zeppelin to send files to developers. We use Sketch to design. So
the reason I mentioned that page is because I use Slack all the time in every single job I work for or with. And I'm really curious to understand, like, what do people think to change the twist? Because I see, like, you even have an integration to move from Slack to Twist, for example. What are the stories that people tell you that to make that change?
Most of them are basically that Twist Slack is too overwhelming, or they can't actually disconnect, so they end up looking for another thing. Of course, some switch back, and we have nothing against this. We would prefer if they kept using Twist, but Twist is still a much newer product. So, Slack still has amazing interactions that we still don't have, because our team is also, I don't know how many times, but many times smaller than Slack. So we can do everything at the same time. But most of the feedback is that people actually can have focused conversations, and they can disconnect.
Really curious to use more Twist. Actually, you started using it on a side project, and it's really interesting because I'm not expecting to get notifications, for example, because I turn them off.
Yeah.
And you have like this timer feature, which is like, I was like, this, I need this everywhere.
It disconnects the notifications from. We also have the time off because, as I mentioned, we really believe in balance across the company. So when people are on vacation, that should be on vacations. So we have a feature, or when they are in maternity leave or parental leave, or when they are sick, we don't want them to need to sign out to stop receiving notifications. So they just go in, they say when they are out, and Twist won't send them any notifications for the next 2 weeks. You can still go in and check, but if you do, probably someone from the team will let you know, hey, you should be on vacations. Why are you replying? Because we really believe that in balance, and that work isn't everything.
What would you tell to someone that is listening to this and wants to work remotely? You gave a lot of tips already, but what would be like the main things that they should consider in order to switch from an office work to a remote environment?
Never work in pajamas.
Why is that? Tell us more about that.
Because it's important to have some kind of barrier between work and
so being
life.
like disciplined.
Yeah. So if you have an extra room, the office at home, you're working from home. If you just have a table, make sure that table is just for work and not for anything else. If you don't, make yourself, when you close the laptop, you're done for the day, for example. So put limits on yourself or on the way that you are working. Be any kind of limits, whatever helps you, because remote work means also that you don't have a schedule. So this can be amazing, because if you need to go to the doctor and it's not anything urgent, you don't need to take a sick leave. You can just work a little bit later, or you can work 1 or 2 hours in the weekend. Or if you're just not feeling productive, you can disconnect and compensate in another day. So this is really good. But it also means that you don't have time where you leave the office and you leave work behind you. So you can actually be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you don't have any kind of disconnection. So enforcing your own limits, it's a good way of working remotely. For instance, I come to the office most of the times. It's also just a 10-minute walk from my house, so that helps. But because I hate commutes. But when I don't come to the office, I go have breakfast outside the house, and then I go back to work. And this is my commute. This is I'm going to work now. Because I feel it's really important for me to, and I have an office and everything, but for me it's still at home. It's still important to have I'm going to work and then I'm going home. So in the end of the day, you can try to schedule something with friends or doing it in your lunchtime. Yeah. Just trying to still be
very disciplined.
Yeah, discipline, and also still keep the connection with other people, not being alone all the time, because that can be difficult. Be social.
It's really interesting because I started working remotely 4 months ago, and one of the things I actually struggle the most is, so I get this feeling that you need to constantly be online, and you need to be constantly like reachable. And if you're not reachable, you feel like you're not working. So you have like this, it feels that you are not giving the impression that you're working as much as everyone is doing in the office.
Because you have an online indicator saying that you are online or not.
That's a very good point. But it seems like that affects me in terms of mental healthness.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you guys have any kind of plan or rules in terms of communication to improve the mental healthness when you need.
We have a mental health channel on Twist where we discuss some things. We usually in the retreat, we always have these kind of discussions as well, because some people feel alone, some people feel depressed. This is life. It's not because you work remotely only. It's what happens everywhere. And we prefer to talk about it openly in the company than just pretending it doesn't exist and everyone is always perfect and smiling, and people have problems, of course. So this can be a challenge. We try to just talk about it and help people move forward.
And was that there since the beginning, or how did you guys find this?
Amir actually wrote a blog post about the dark side of remote working some time ago, and Amir is the founder, and he suffered a lot when he was in Taipei before Doist actually becoming a company. And he talks about this in the blog post, and I think that's also something he was always very careful about, and why balance is one of the things that we look for in every employee, because he struggled with that, so it makes sense that he always has an eye on that. And some people in the company already did struggle with that as well, or have families or friends that did. So, yeah.
I'm just have two last questions.
No problem.
One is, what's the best thing and worst thing about working at Doist? Or challenging thing, let's call it like that. And the last question is one that I ask to everyone. What is like to be Anna nowadays?
Okay, what is like to be Anna? Okay. So the first one, the best thing is that actually we try to trust people, and we try that everyone in the company has a voice, from the founder to the last person that joined the company. So everyone should complain, everyone should say what they think could be improved, and we will always listen. Of course, not always we can do everything, or most of the time we can't, but everyone has a voice, and I think this is really important for us, because everyone has an impact on the things that we are building and on the company that we are also building. The most challenging thing, maybe it's, I don't feel alone most of the times, but I'm in a office with some of my coworkers, so I know that some people actually feel alone, which can be a challenge, and not just from Doist, but from all kinds of remote work. I think the biggest challenging is maybe wait for feedback. Because we are not used to do that. And even I, that already work here 6 years, 7 years, I still sometimes miss feedback, and I know that others too. And sometimes we also have lots of communication, and we are working on lots of projects, so sometimes the feedback arrives even later because we are working on something else. So I think that is one of the biggest things. What it's like to be Anna on day to day. So...
not on day to day, just being Anna.
Yeah, like being Anna. So I try to spend as much time as possible with family and friends, enjoying the life outside work. I really enjoy my work, and I really believe that in the company that we are trying to build and in the products we are building, trying to be as mindful as possible. I think nowadays, most of the products that our developers are trying to catch users' attention all the time. And they just want users in front of their computer, their phones, as long as possible. Always like, yeah, I'm here. And we try exactly the opposite. We try to build tools that actually empower people and help people live their lives outside work. And I think this is really important for me. So I love my job. I try to spend time with friends. I'm reading a lot lately. Because,
what are you reading?
Right now I'm reading A Brief History of Time from Stephen Hawking. I will reread it sometime in the future because there are lots of concepts and things that are still too advanced for me. But I'm really enjoying it. So I'm reading a lot. I usually have my breakfasts, trying to put on some pages on my reading list. So yeah, I think that's mostly it. I try to.
What would you recommend me to read? Or anyone else that is listening?
I also read recently the. How did it call? I need a minute.
Yeah, I forget all the titles as well.
It's really recent. I shouldn't have forgotten, but I will get that.
Take your time. I'm super curious because I read a lot as well. So
what are you reading?
I'm reading, that's the right question. No, I'm reading 21 Lessons for the 21st Century.
Yeah, I read that in the beginning of the year. Ruined by Design by Mike Monteiro.
Oh, okay.
I think if you're interested in design or product design and about all these things about mindfulness and not building bad products or dark patterns in products, I think it's a really nice read. If you're interested in accessibility and things like that, I would also recommend Mismatch, How Inclusion Shapes Design from Kat Holmes.
Cool.
Which is a nice read. And if you're interested in becoming a manager or something like that, you can read The Making of a Manager from Zuli Zhu from Facebook. It's also a nice read. Those are the last three that I've read.
Okay, just because it's very sunny outside, I'm thinking, what's the best thing about being in Porto?
Friends, family. I think that's what keeps me here. Sunny outside is much better than it when it's rain outside, like yesterday. So yeah, last week it was actually amazing. So yeah, I think family, friends, and the weather when it's nice. When it's not nice, it's not so good.
Great. I'm so grateful that you had the time to do this, and thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.